What's up, guys? I'm finally done leveling at least 370s, so it's finally time to start talking about PvP on the channel. And with that, I want to first break down which classes are the best in PvP and which ones are performing the best so far. So we're going to look at 2s, 3s, and 5s, the top 100 teams of both the NA and the EU brackets, and tell you which classes are performing the best. And some of this will be no real surprise. If you've been doing any PvP yourself, you can know which classes are the best, which are the hardest to go against, and how each one is performing. So we're gonna just break it down and kind of talk about why things are the way they are this early in season 1. That being said, if you guys are excited about a ton of PvP content, I'm going to be knocking these out like crazy. I have a lot of guides lined up, especially for Rogue. So if you like this, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's dive right into it. Okay, so first off, we're going to ironforge.pro. There's a couple websites that are showing the ladder basically of the PvP ladders, but the quickest one and easiest ones for me, also one made by a guildie, shout out Salad Bakers, is ironforge.pro. If you knew anything about Classic, this was also where we could see demographics of people's or the different servers and see how many players were there, as well as the skew between Horde and Alliance. But something that's really not going to surprise you guys if you've been doing any PvP at all or known anything about TBC is that the golden class, the rogue, is absolutely destroying it, especially in 2s and 3s. This is the most popular class, most likely for PvP, but definitely the highest represented class in the higher echelon of the PvP system, with people like Mir, who's absolutely insane, Waz, Snuts, Bobka, all of these players that are just nuts, streaming things for you guys to check out if you want to improve at Rogue. So for DPS, you can see a lot of rogues here, a lot of yellow. You may be struggling to get your raid spot, but you're doing just fine in PvP. And why is Rogue so strong right now is because, one, you don't need an insane amount of resilience because you're generally not being DPS'd most of the time. Sometimes in a Rogue healer combo, you're kind of like fighting each other, or a warrior can kind of destroy you with low resil. Sometimes it's kind of rough, but a Rogue has the most CC in the game for a single class. It kind of has almost two toolkits, and it also does an incredible amount of damage. So you're kind of going with this bursty combination where comps like double DPS with rogues, Rogue Mage especially, so you can see Czar and Naj, as well as Mir and Raikou, or anyone else really. Rogue Mage is such an insane composition because it's doing a lot of damage while taking very little damage very quickly. So the Rogue is the #1 class right now, and I would say that's in 2s, 3s, and it kind of falls off a little bit in 5s. You can see there's a little bit less representation in 3s, but then as you move into 5s, you do see a lot of rogues. Rogue, almost everywhere in the top brackets, but it isn't as powerful because you can kind of bring in more classes as you move towards the 5s. The second class that is kind of dominating the 2s and 3s bracket as well as the 5s bracket is going to be the Mage. Mages are doing extremely well right now because, again, right now we have very low resilience for the most part, although at this top bracket, a lot of these players have a ton of resilience, but not all of them. Some of them are actually running with very, very low resilience. So Mages and Rogues are two of the classes that can shine pretty strongly with very little resilience, as well as they'll consistently be a very, very powerful class. But this early in the game, they have so much burst damage that combo together is just insane in both 2s and 3s. So if we look here, you'll see a lot of mages as well, and then you'll start to see a lot more actually Warlocks. So Warlocks start stepping things up kind of as the third most represented DPS class in 3s, although in 2s in the higher brackets, we actually see more warriors. In the US and EU, you'll start seeing more warriors, although Warlocks shine pretty much just as well as warriors. In EU, you see more Warlocks, and in NA, you see more warriors shining in 2s, but That's mainly, again, because warriors are an extremely strong class. You can already get pretty much your best weapon with Deep Thunder, and then you're running with a healer, most likely a druid, sometimes a shaman, but that's more rare. You can get this crazy like Wind Fury proc, and also the poison cleansing totem is very useful against rogues. But warriors have incredible CC, incredible sustain damage, and as well incredible burst. With low resilience, warriors can pretty much kill anyone. It's kind of a race sometimes to see which healer dies first in a healer DPS combo against warriors. And then if you look at fives, warriors can do really well as long as they don't die. If a warrior has low resilience, you will go down pretty quickly. So warrior, another class that's shining really well, and warlock, a class that's shining really well. Warlocks in particular are very strong this early on in the brackets of 2s and 3s because dots do so much damage with low resilience. And the extra damage from Warlocks is just helping them like crazy. But then if you move into 5s, including your sustained and CC, as well as you also have an interrupt and a dispel, which is crucial for 5s. If you're running 2 healers and only one of them has a dispel with 1 priest, then to make sure that they are broken out of sheeps and such, you need that dispel. So warlocks bring a ton of utility into the 5s teams brackets. These are the classes that are shining the most right now in the DPS bracket. But there's one other class that is doing very, very well right now. And you might have guessed it, but that is going to be the hunter. Hunters, BM hunters in particular, are crazy scary right now. And with low resilience, it's pretty much run away from the hunter. That's pretty much what it is. If the hunter uses Bestial Wrath, your job is to LOS and hide until it's gone. But a hunter pet can pretty much kill a mage by itself during Bestial Wrath without the hunter actually doing the damage. So hunters are extremely scary right now, and we're seeing a lot of comps like double healer hunter doing very, very well in the 3s brackets, as well as healer hunter or rogue hunter being very powerful in the 2s bracket. And then in 5s, some comps are running double hunters. So these all together kind of rounds out the top DPS classes that we're seeing. And then in 5s, you can have things like your enhancement or elemental shamans, your ret pallies, things like shadow priests. Everything is kind of more fair game in 5s. And right now, it's harder to break down what each one is unless you go to each class. But on top of everything in DPS classes is going to be rogues right now early on, and this will actually kind of sustain throughout TBC. Rogues are always going to be a very powerful class, but right now games are very short and very bursty, where rogues can kind of control the pace of the game completely instead of having to wait for a second round of CDs, which if a longer game happens, then you get blind up before a trinket comes back. If you've saved CDs, you can do a blind into a sap, into another sap, or a fear sap. It's amazing, and that's going to happen a lot more later on in the later seasons. But currently, Rogue is being one of the most powerful classes, if not the most powerful class in TBC arenas, followed by mages and then warriors and warlocks. They are just doing so well, and hunters also doing extremely well. The other classes are shining in their own light, but a lot less often. Now let's move over to the healers and talk about which healers are doing well. And I think this is really to no one's surprise, but the healers doing the best are priests and druids. It actually is a little bit skewed from some predictions and some opinions, is that druids are actually performing really well this early on, but druids bring a ton of CC. They also bring a ton of healing, and they have incredible kiting abilities. Druids can get away extremely easily. They are, or were expected to be, a lot easier to kill. So on private servers at this resilience, druids would be dead a lot faster than they are right now. And this is something I was suspecting and thinking about, but then was actually confirmed on stream by Mir as well. So I was like, okay, I wasn't crazy. Druids are living a lot longer than they used to. I'm not sure why, but they're a lot harder to kill. Sometimes you can destroy them, and sometimes it can be a long fight to kill them. And if you're playing healer DPS versus healer DPS, your healer might die first. So Druids are doing very well in 2s and especially well in 5s. And then priests. Priests are kind of the kings of healers, especially if you look at 3s, but as well at 2s. That priests are extremely strong, mainly because they bring not only CC, but they also bring a ton of damage as well. So this priest can do a ton of damage, adding on to your goes and kill potentials to make sure that you just secure the kill and secure the win. Priests also come with obviously fears, but as well mana burns. So priests can use mana burns that will help you win the mana fight in these longer matches. If a priest can get a dispel on a druid, which I don't know, also, it seems like dispel protection is kind of iffy, kind of like if you're playing a rogue and you notice that Cloak of Shadows isn't that 80%, it's more like a 60%. And I'll show that in a later video, testing this over a long period with a lot of Warlocks. It's crazy how much you get dotted through Cloak of Shadows. But it's also kind of like that with dispel protection on Druids. It seems like they are not getting dispelled as easily as they should be. They've got 20% dispel protection. And so if a priest can get innervate, you're almost always going to win the mana battle, because if you can catch a healer out in the open or within a CC, you are going to hit them with a mana burn. So priests are very strong right now. They are quite hard to kill. They have a good sustainability as well as great DPS. So these are the classes that are shining the most as healers, druids and priests. Then what about shamans? Shamans are doing just fine, not nearly as represented at the highest tier of the ladders, but you are seeing a lot of shamans, or I guess you would say more a few shamans, usually playing with a melee or a hunter. So shaman compositions have a playstyle where you kind of revolve around the totems, and totems are bugged right now, where if you say have dispel protection on a rogue with vile poisons, where it should be a lot harder for your poisons to get dispelled. It looks like poison resist totem or poison cleanse totem is actually ignoring vile poisons completely, and it's just taking away your poisons. So shamans are a little bit bugged right now, where they're actually a little bit stronger than they should be, unless Blizzard isn't intending it this way and other servers got this wrong, where totems just ignore dispel protection. But shamans are very strong right now for that purpose, as well as they bring Wind Fury Totem, as well as Bloodlust, which is very powerful for warriors and even your every now and then Ret Pally that you run into. This is crazy strong in 5s. Bloodlust is insane for 5s, and Shaman is actually almost necessary for a 5s team. As you can see, there is pretty much a Shaman on every single team in the top 100. If we look at the EU, and then if we move over to the US, the only team that really stands out very much is that the number 1 team don't actually run a shaman, but pretty much every other team, as you can look again, is running one of their blue boys. And this doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a healing shaman, but shamans bring a lot of utility with their totems and with Bloodlust that actually shines a lot more as you move towards the 3s and 5s brackets. They do just fine in 2s, but they're not doing as well as any of the other healers or the other 2 healers I mentioned. And then lastly is Paladins. Paladins aren't the most highly represented classes in the tier lists. They do just fine in 3s and 5s, but again, aren't the most popular in 2s. But you can see if you scroll over, they're kind of represented all over the place in 5s. The issues with Paladins is usually your CC potential. You do add a stun, but you don't have a crazy amount of CC, and you do have to hardcast most of your abilities, which can be a little bit of a struggle. But if you're not being targeted, it's completely fine being able to hardcast. So Paladins show up a lot more on the 3s and 5s bracket, particularly 5s, than they do on the 2s bracket, but they do all have their place. And either way, you're getting your points from 5s anyways, guys. So, this was a long-winded breakdown of how well each class is performing, or the top classes are performing on the ladder right now in TBC, early TBC, with rogues, mages, warlocks, and warriors shining in the DPS bracket, and then with druids and priests shining very strongly in the 2s and 3s brackets, and then shamans coming up very strong in the 5s brackets as healers. So things will change as we add more resilience and also get more stamina, and also we will get more damage as we move into the later seasons or later half of this season. Thank you guys all for tuning in. I hope this was helpful for you, especially if you are trying to choose your next class as an alt or anything, or choose which brackets to play as, or if you want to go into ironforge.pro and check it out yourself and see which compositions work really well for your class. You can make anything work, but a lot of classes have really good synergy together. Anyways, I will see you guys all out there on the ladder. I can finally PvP myself now that I have at least 3 level 70s. So I'll see you all on the next one.